All right. All right. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to the TechCast, the revolutionary broadcast brought to you by the open source community, a thriving club at VIT-AP. Embrace the thrilling journey into the dynamic realm of open source technology as we explore the latest advancements and innovative projects shaping the tech landscape. From seasoned developers to curious learners, TechCast caters to all tech enthusiasts. Our platform fosters diversity and global collaboration, hosting brilliant minds from across the globe who share their expertise and passion for open source. With a focus on collaboration, transparency, and community driven development, open source technology has driven remarkable advancements. Join us for engaging interactions, in depth hands on sessions, and insightful discussions as we celebrate the power of community driven technology. Today, we are here with yet another episode that is episode 5 for the TechCast series. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce an exceptional individual who currently serves as a software development engineer at Microsoft. He embarked on this journey with an impressive internship at the same esteemed company. With over 10,000 subscribers in his YouTube channel, The Lean Programmer, he is dedicated to empower the student community in technology and personal growth. Moreover, he played pivotal role as the community founder and leader at Code to Express, fostering connections among programmers from diverse backgrounds, enabling collective learning and growth. In addition to his expertise, he has made significant contributions to personal development as a blogger on Medium, inspiring countless individuals with his insights and wisdom. And the best part is, he is a graduate from VIT Vellore. Today, he is here with his very informative and hands on session on Git, GitHub, and open source, mastering the powerful version control system. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Madhav B, a true inspiration in the world of technology and personal growth. We welcome you, sir. Over to you.
It was a very, very kind introduction. Thanks a lot, Apurva. And those were some big words. I'm not anything special. I'm just like you. I just graduated 3 years ago, so you can consider all of you watching this video right now. If you are in college, you can consider me as your big brother. If you are elder than me, then consider me as your younger brother. And I'm here to share a little bit about open source. In college, how open source helped me, and just wanted to have a lot of open discussion as well. But since it's both live broadcast on YouTube as well as some live participants with us as well. So I think my live interaction is going to be restricted only to the people who are present here. But that's okay. It's okay. I'm looking forward to have fun with you. And I think those who are attending this from the YouTube can also just mention whatever they think. If they have any question or anything they want to tell, they can just put it on the chat. I think there should be a chat section, right, Apurva?
Yeah, I'll ask my team to convey those chats here as well. Yeah.
Perfect. That would be amazing. Okay, so I'm really happy to have be here and to be talking to all of you and delivering this session on open source. Open source specifically has helped me a lot in my interviews as well. So open source, there are a lot of misconceptions about open source. I don't know what um, is your experience. Everyone who is watching this video on YouTube, plus everyone who are present here. So I don't know what are your experience levels. So I'm going to go from complete basics, and we're going to dive into the GitHub, and why Git is so important. There were so many version control systems before Git as well, and why Git became so important. So it's going to be a lot of theory as well as, but look forward to being here with you and to be able to solve all your doubts. So about me, Purva was kind enough to introduce me. And if you want to connect with me, I'm there on almost every social media platform. So just send a hi on Instagram or LinkedIn, or not Facebook. Facebook, I'm not active anymore. Medium and GitHub. And if you want to get mentored by me, you can visit topmate.io/the lean program. And before starting, I think most of you would already be aware of this, but in case someone is not, and you're a student, and you don't know about this thing, you're missing on a lot. What is this exact thing? We'll come to it later on. But there is something by which you can get benefits worth more than $200,000. This $200,000 was the figure in 2020. I could not find any blog after that. They haven't updated much, although the offers and the benefits have been just increasing. So I'm pretty sure right now it must be much, much more than $200,000. So all of you who are currently enrolled in any university, or if you are any student, you will be getting benefits worth more than $200,000. Um, okay, I'm not joking. Yeah. How to avail that? I'm not sure how many of you are already aware about this, but if you are not, then it's going to be fun. We'll come back to this. And why workshops and conferences? I kind of attached this slide to. Wait, I am not sharing my screen. I'm just talking. Oh, that was that was a bummer. Cool. Burwa, can you confirm if you can see my screen?
Yeah, it's visible now.
Okay, perfect. That was okay. Anyways, if you want to get access to this slide, you can just go to the leanprogrammer.com/os-webinar. And yeah, I was speaking continuously, and I think most of you would not have context of what I was speaking, but I'm really sorry for that. Anyways, I didn't say much. I was just telling about my social activities. You can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever. You can get mentored by me and so on. So this is what I was telling you, that you all as a student can get benefits worth $200,000, which is more than 1.6 crore. That's true. That's definitely true. I feel that most of you should already be knowing about this, but if you're not, then it's going to be exciting for you. So hold on, we'll come back. And why do we need workshops and conferences? Why just not YouTube videos, online courses, and college classes? This is something that I add, a simple slide that I add in every talk that I give. So when you are present live, physically or virtually, in some sort of a workshop or a conference, you get a chance to discuss about topics, AI. I really wanted to have a one-on-one interaction, or a one-to-one interaction around AI and stuff as well. Maybe if we get time towards the end, because AI is the latest trend these days, and AI is everywhere. Yeah, we can discuss that if time permits, and then we can find like-minded people. At least everyone who is watching this video right now on YouTube, I really want you to just post your LinkedIn profiles, and everyone else just connect with each other. And that's how we can connect virtually as well. When we are present physically in any meetup or in any workshop, it's really amazing. But after COVID, world has become hybrid, right? And we all know that being present physically everywhere is no longer a most optimal solution. So that's why virtual thing is becoming virtual is the new reality. You can still connect with like-minded people virtually as well. All you need to do is just post your LinkedIn profiles on the chat and connect with each other. So today we are going to look at some misconceptions about open source. We're going to look at GitHub and the $200,000 deal, and a little bit about Git. Again, I'm not sure how much already do you know about Git. So if it's very, very basic for you, I'm really sorry. Just hold on for 30 minutes, or I'll just try to cover it within 30 minutes so that we can get some some one-on-one interaction as well. And in the open discussions, I'll tell you the story of how open source really helped me out. What all opportunities do you have in open source, GSOC? If you have some questions with me, I haven't done GSOC in my college days, but I have a lot of friends who did GSOC, and it definitely helps a lot. It's not like you're going to get a job just on the basis of GSOC. I don't know if you even know about what is GSOC or not. Most of you should know, but if you're not, we'll discuss about it in the open discussion. So the common thing that you see in between all of these softwares present here is that all of them are open source. Now, what do we mean by open source? Usually, I tend to ask a lot of questions when I am in meetups, when I'm in workshops, or when I'm presenting anything. I tend to ask questions from the audience and let them do the talking. Um, but yeah, virtual environment is different. Um, so I guess Purva, is it fine if I just ask people um, and then wait for them to answer, or should we have a open discussion towards the end itself? And I'm fine with
Actually,
anything.
the either way is fine. I think the participants might also be interested to interact with you. So I think either way can work. There's no issue.
That's even perfect. So at least for the people who are present here, I want to learn from you because I would really want to know how much do you know about open source. So yeah, anyone who wants to speak about what do you mean by open source, I really want to know. And just don't go to my slides and see the answer and tell me because I already know that. But yeah, anyone wants to go ahead? One, don't be shy. Um, at least one of you should know what is open source. I think most of you would know, but maybe you're too shy to answer. By being shy, you miss out on the opportunities that life present to you. I know it's not a big opportunity, unmuting your mic and coming and then speaking. It's not a big opportunity. Uh, it's a simple presentation. It's a simple workshop. But the amount of courage that you present by going in a simple workshop, by speaking up in a simple workshop, is going to determine how much amount of courage you can show in real life as well. So this is the starting. If you're thinking that you are, you don't really want to speak or something, you're shy. This is the best platform that you can open up. Things like these help. So I'll tell you some small story. I was really, really introvert when I was in college days. Really introvert in my first year, at least. And that all happened because something happened in my college. In my school days, I was into public speaking a lot. I wanted to just grab onto every single opportunity that I had for public speaking. I really wanted to grab it. And I was too hasty. And one day I made a miserable mistake on stage with 1,000 people watching me, and that destroyed my confidence. And as a result, I never could bring up that courage to again go up to the stage and speak, which was very unfortunate, very unfortunate. And things like this happen. But then, so for 5 to 6 years, I did not take any public speaking opportunity, did not take part in any debates, school debates, so on. And yeah, and when I started, when I went to VIT, VIT has this best thing. I'm not promoting my college. There are pros and cons of every college, and there are a lot of cons in VIT. So everyone knows that. But yeah, the one biggest thing in VIT, which I really love, is there are a lot of technical communities and chapters. And these tech communities and chapters give you a lot of opportunities to open yourself up, to 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 take part in hackathon, more competitive, be more better in every aspect, in public speaking, in networking, in communication, in body language. You see, right now, there are a lot of people who, as soon as they come on the stage, they start doing all those stammering and all the stuff. I was one of them. And how did I remove all these? Since the time I've started speaking, it's been 15 minutes since the time they started because I'm able to see this recording and the time is showing 15 minutes. For the first 15 minutes, I have been speaking and you're noticing me. I'm not stammering. I'm not doing those. I'm presenting with full of my energy. And how did that happen? That happened because I showed the courage in these small workshops, these chapter events. I went up to the stage and presented my views. Whenever someone was presenting in front of me, I questioned them. I asked them, and that's where. So I thought I tried to motivate you a lot. We'll not deviate. We'll not digress more. So sorry for digressing. Um, Everyone who is present here, at least on the Teams call, anyone wants to take a chance? What do you mean by open? I know you all know it. You're just shy to speak, right? I'll just wait for 10 seconds. Does anyone want to try it? Unmute yourself and see.
Nadeep, if you said something, you were not audible.
Okay, it's fine. I'll go ahead. It happens. And there's no need to feel bad. I was in your place. And sometimes it becomes, yeah, obviously, we are shy. But that was one advice. I spent 10 minutes. I hope I did not waste my or your 10 minutes.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible now, Soumyadeep.
Yeah. So according to me, open source is basically people coming together from different. What I would like to say is about open source is uh, something that they want to create together, which is not controlled by a federation or something that is like controlled by a organization. It's free for everyone for them to edit and maybe make um, contributions.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point, Soumyadeep. Yeah, you were at most of the places you were correct. So free for everyone, partially correct. Yes, that's called FOSS. FOSS is FOSS, free and open source software. Most of the open source softwares belong to this category, FOSS, free and open source. And it's not controlled by an organization. Yes, that's also correct. It's not directly controlled by organizations, but there are organizations which maintain it. So if no organization come into the picture, code might become stale. Why would anyone contribute? And these things, like if something is just lying there on the floor, you would probably not bother with it, right? You'll think that someone else will pick it up, and that can happen with code as well. So if it's just standing in someone's repository, people might not care to build upon it unless and until it becomes very, very famous. So either an individual or any organization has to take that initiative to start it, to maintain it. So there are no controllers as such, but yes, there are maintainers, individual maintainers and org maintainers as well. Yeah, Somiti.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, actually, what I meant was like recently that we have this, like Threads. Threads was launched, and there were so many people who were not into Threads, and they were looking for alternative to Twitter. And then the Fediverse, I think it's there is a Fediverse, and it started coming up, and everyone is into Fediverse now. Like that's what I meant.
Yeah.
That's what is going on. That's what I'm basically decentralized and everything. That's what I mean.
Yeah. 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 So going forward, open source is in simple language. Okay, let me actually tell you the definition of open source. I hate definitions. I hate uh, bookish language in uh, per se. So yeah, open source software is a type of computer software in which software code is released under a license. You can read it. You can read it everywhere. But what does it mean? What does it mean? To break it down simply, open source software is basically nothing but a software whose source code is available to everyone. But being available to everyone does not mean um, it's you can do whatever with it. You whatever you want to do with it, right? So there are different type of licenses. So one misconception, I told you I'm going to tell you many misconceptions with open source going forward. So one misconception that a lot of people have is open source means I can do whatever the hell I want with that software, and that's not true. And a lot of people face lawsuits and all these bad stuff because they tend to copy and paste. They tend to do all sort of bad things. So being open source does not mean you can do whatever you want with it. It basically means you have access to the source code. Now, what you can do with that source code is still controlled by a license. And that license is mutually decided by the people who are in the organization which is maintaining that source code or the owner of the repository itself. And now that license define how can people use it. But in general, open source, the term open source basically means it's open for the community to contribute. And why would we contribute, right? Why would we actually care about open source? Because it's not like we can directly earn from open source. If you write code for a company, they're going to pay it for it. That's how businesses work, right? At the end of the day, at the bottommost point, everything that you see around yourself, everything that you see every name that you hear, everything is a business, right? Our conception of business was kind of our misconception, right? Whenever we think about business, we see, oh, Lay's, that's a business, okay. Uh, and then our laptop, Lenovo, that's a business because they're directly giving us products. But we forget that even software is a business. The Windows that you're running, that's a business. The software that you're using, let's say Microsoft Word, that's a business. Google Chrome that you're using, that's a business. Everything, every single thing is a business. It might be free software, it might be paid, but anyways. And now, whenever we write code for these closed source applications, we know we can earn from them. We can just ask the company, hey, I'm going to write code for you. You're going to sell this product. You're going to sell this, for example, Zomato. A lot of people are going to buy from Zomato. And there are developers who will build the Zomato app for the Zomato's CEO or whatever, the company itself. And then Zomato is going to make sales. And then the company is going to earn from the sales that people, whenever people buy on Zomato. And then the company is going to pay some share of it to the developers. That's how we earn. But what about open source? Why do we actually care about open source? Another question. Anyone? I'm going to wait for 10 seconds since we are already we have to finish by 5:15-ish, I think. So yeah, I'm just going to wait for 10 seconds. Okay, so let me tell you, why do we actually care about open source? Again, this is one misconception that we cannot earn from open source. Yes, we cannot directly earn from open source because no one's going to pay you if it's open source, but we can indirectly earn from open source. That was another misconception. And third misconception is no one cares about open source. No, that's not true. Everyone cares about open source. Everyone. Why? Coming back to the basic idea of open source, we know when the when the code is out there for everyone to contribute, there are many benefits if that code becomes famous. If that code becomes famous, that's a very um, basic premise. If that code is famous, people from all over the world are going to contribute to the code. Because if you are maintaining something alone, it's just a single brain acting on it. But then when thousands of brains come together, they can build something really good quality. So code quality is also maintained. It can reduce the duplication of efforts. How? Simple. Let's say I am providing a free and open source software. Open source does not really mean open source or free. Free and open source is a subset of open source. If I'm providing a FOSS or free and open source software, it is definitely going to reduce the duplication of effort because I have built something already that you can build on top of. For example, I'm not talking about free and open source here. Let's talk about, let's say, some sort of API, any API. I, as a person, builds one API, and then you, let's say Soumyadeep, has to build some sort of an app. Let's say I am Google Maps, and Soumyadeep is Uber. So Soumyadeep is going to build on top of Google Map, and that's how. Again, I'm not saying Google Map is open source. Um, that's a basic. That's how businesses work. These softwares building on top of each other. That's how these things work. So I am going to take some money from Soumyadeep, let's say some sort of a royalty or some sort of a annual or monthly subscription, something like that. And then say to Soumyadeep, hey, I'm going to provide you my service, and then you can provide me some money. And then Soumyadeep is going to build an app on top of my service, and he's going to sell that app, and then he's going to earn money from that. So money is kind of transferred between one person to another. This is not specific to open source, but in open source specifically, it reduces a lot of duplication of effort because again, the code is out there in the open. You know if someone has already built it. You can just go and search it. Again, you can search for closed source softwares as well, but it's it's seen that building on top of closed source softwares is comparatively more difficult. That's a controversial statement, but yes, anyone who is into open source will tend to agree that yes, reducing duplication of efforts in closed source softwares is more difficult than open source. And as a student, why do you care? You don't care about code quality, right? You don't care about duplication of efforts. You're not running a business. Most of you right now are student. So why do you care about open source? Why should you care about open source? Simple. Because it's going to showcase your talents. And that's where it helped me as well. I used to contribute a lot to open source in my college days. These days, obviously, when you get into the industry, you don't get time. You have to do tens of thousands of things together. You have to manage multiple things. You have personal responsibilities and commitments as well. Unfortunately, these days I'm not very much active into open source, but I'm planning to come back. I will come back definitely. Okay, but anyhow, coming back to the topic, you can, as a student, you can showcase your talent and competence. I know so many people who never touched TSA. That does not mean they're not good at data structures and algorithms. They are, but they never went to competitive level. And I'm one of them. I never went to a competitive level in data structures and algorithms. I did not participate in ACM, ICPC. I did not participate in Google's hash code, I think, whatever it was called. But I'm confident that, yeah, I have good software development skills. And then there are thousands of people like me and even more competent than me who don't do DSA. Open source can be seen as one alternative to actually show your talent, because open source shows everything that interviewer needs. What does an interviewer look in when they are hiring a possible candidate for the software company? We all know they should be good at developing software. They should be good at writing code. First thing. Second thing, they should be good at working with teams. These are the two main things that people look into, right? And that's what the HR round and the coding round is for. Coding round is to make sure that you are good at coding. The HR round is to make sure that you are good at collaborating with people. You won't uh, come up as a jerk who just fights with everyone, who never works in team, who is who's basically a jerk. You don't want to come out like that. And that's, if you're contributing to open source, you are giving a proof of both of them. Because most of the good open source projects, there are a lot of organizations like FOSS Asia, a lot of them. You can actually read more about those. Go to their projects, go to their open source project. Even Microsoft has a lot of open source projects, which you would be surprised to know if you don't know already. VS Code, my favorite text editor, everyone's favorite text editor at this point, VS Code. I like literally I have connected with so many developers over the past 2 3 years, and I've not seen anyone using any other text editor than VS Code. It's become so famous. I know you might say that, hey, I use Sublime Text, I use Atom. Atom and Sublime Text are good. Definitely, they are good. But these days, it's just a trend that VS Code is becoming more famous, and VS Code is an open source software. You can see the GitHub repository. If you don't want to do it yourself, let me bring it up for you. VS Code GitHub. So if you see this VS Code, the whole VS Code software is open source. You can just go to this GitHub repository. You can see the issues and you can start contributing. Let's say there's one issue, unable to use R key. I don't know what the hell is R key. Keyboard for all programming languages, whatever it is. And then you can ask, just go ahead, ask on the issue. Hey, what do you mean by R key? What do you mean by this, that, so on? And then you can start contributing. Just clone this repository. Um, if you're new to GitHub, like I'll tell you what is a clone, what is a repository, and everything. Let me come back to why. So I hope that now you're sure that, okay, even as the student, open source is for you. And in simple terms, if you don't have to go over the bookish language, in simple terms, open source just means every project that you can find on GitHub. It's not exclusive to GitHub. You can find open source projects on GitLab as well and other um, websites as well. But open source, like GitHub at least, since most of the contribution goes on GitHub, GitHub is the most famous right now. So every single project that you can see on GitHub is open source, unless and until it's a private project. So to make a contribution, what do we mean by contribution? It's an English word. I think you all know. A contribution just means contributing to the code, writing your own lines of code in the main code. That's it. That's called a contribution. How to do a contribution? Go to the issues, find out the issue to work on. There are more than 5,000 issues, right? You don't need to you don't need to do a lot of hard work. So let's say this one snippet requires extra tab movement, window terminated, so on, endless. And now you're not going to tell me that there's a lack of opportunities in my college or in my. You don't need to stay limited to your college. I get to hear not from VIT. VIT is a good college, but from a lot of tier 3 college students, I get to hear this a lot that hey, I don't get enough opportunities. What should I do? And I'm going to record this as well because this is very important. I'm just going to put it on my Instagram. You can, if you want, you can follow me on Instagram, the Lean Programmer. So if you're not getting opportunities, if you say that your college is not going to give you opportunities, not giving you enough opportunities, what are you waiting for? Don't wait for your college. Just go to open source. Just go to GitHub. Find any good project you want to work on. Go to the issues tab and then start looking at the issues. And then whatever you want to work on, there are tons of opportunities. This is one open source repository. What is repository? I'll come to it. But there are thousands, I don't know how many, hundreds of thousands of open source repositories out there which you can contribute. So you can create opportunities. Records. Anyways, cool. So open source is really a wonderful feeling. And I'm really excited that I'm talking to you guys about open source because it's been a long time since I contributed to open source as well. And I just got reminded how many friends did I make during when I used to open source. There was a person in Vietnam whom I connected with, who became a really good friend because of open source. He was maintaining a repository. I contributed to it. Bang. We connected on Facebook. We talked a little bit, and I was surprised to know his background. We haven't talked from a long time though, but yeah, I'm just telling you an example. I'll not take his name. So he was in law background. He was a lawyer back then, and he shifted to code and he started doing open source. Open source helped him to get a job in software engineering. That's how amazing open source is, right? You can contribute, you can connect with some super awesome people. This is the main thing. Like when you actually start doing open source, you'll get to talk to so many wonderful people out there. And hey, Madhav, are there any prerequisites to start contributing to the world of open source? Just Git and GitHub are enough. So a lot of people overthink that, hey, I'm not good at C++, I'm not good at Java, I'm not good at C Sharp, I'm not good at React, I'm not good at JavaScript. What contribution am I going to make? You don't need to be good enough at anything. You can learn on the go. Just find a, something simple enough that you can start working on. You're good enough to go. You want to learn React.js? What's a what could be a better way than start contributing to open source and then learning it parallelly? There's one amazing talk by Linus Torvalds. I hope you would know who this guy is. I'm not going to tell you. Do listen to it afterwards. Cool. Anything till now? So I think this is the second last topic. And the last topic is going to be some internal workings of Git. And then there will be a homework for you to make your own first open source contribution. I hope a lot of people would have already made open source contributions because this is very basic. Everything that I'm telling you right now is super basic. You might already be aware of it. But since I wanted to make sure that even if someone from school attends this webinar, even if someone from first year attends this webinar, they should be very clear about open source. There should be no misconception about open source, Git or GitHub. And that's why I'm covering everything in basic. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Till now, any doubts? I'll wait for 10 seconds. Okay, so I think everything is good and everything is clear. It's good to know. Does anyone wants to speak? I could hear something, but I don't know if someone was speaking or was it coming from neighborhood. Okay, I think I guess there was someone. Yeah, feel free to unmute and feel free to speak. Uh, I'm happy to help.
I think it was a mistake, maybe, because I can't see any participants speaking right now.
Yeah. Okay. Then let's go forward. Forward. So let's have a closer look at GitHub. GitHub, I see GitHub as more as a social media website for developers where you can show off your amazing code, where you can build your own projects, you can have followers, you can. It looks like this. Let's make an account. I hope all of you would already have an account on GitHub. If not, then you can quickly go to GitHub and create an account. It's as simple as just clicking on the sign up button, entering your email, entering your creating a password, and creating a username. That's it. So simple. And then this is usually how a GitHub, your GitHub would look like. There will be some projects. There you can create your own account. You can put your photo with some caption, and a lot of things. You can link to your Twitter, your personal website, and so on. And this is a repository section. This is very basic. I don't need to cover it. Okay. And if you don't want to know more about GitHub, you can read my article. I wrote it a couple of years ago. I think 3 years ago. But anyways, Git Good. This has all the details in depth about Git and GitHub. So very basic information is your organizations, you're part of repositories, stars, followers, following, creating a repository, creating a gist. GitHub gists are basically code snippets that you can share with people. And now here we are, offers worth $200,000. Amazing. This is really amazing. Just a second. Okay. Now let me see how many of you are still here with me. Since I tend to speak a lot, so yeah, a lot of times people don't follow. Anyways, so how many of you have already claimed this GitHub student developer? Just raise your hands. That's it. Raise your hands. Simple. Click on this raise hand button. Okay, let me change the question. How many of you have not claimed your student developer? Now you guys raise your hands. Okay, I see so many hands up. So people are still following me. So if you have not, this is something really amazing for you because you can with your using your VIT email or using if someone is watching this on YouTube using your college email, you can sign up for a student developer pack. It's very simple. Just sign up and enter your college email ID, and within 1 to 2 days, they'll just approve it. I think they have some automated tools to approve EDU domains. This is called EDU domains, like vitstudent.com, whatever, anything, MET, VIT, SRM, IIT, triple IT, whatever. All these are edu domains. So they have an automated software to figure out if this is a valid edu domain. I think they should be able to accept it in less than 1 hour, but usually it might take 1 to 2 days. And once you sign up for the student developers pack, here are so many things that you got that you'll get offers to StreamYard, name.com. Basically you are going to get a free .com domain. You can create your own. Um, let's say Apurva. Apurva can create apurva.com, which is so cool, right? And you can get access to all these things. You can get access to Figma's paid account and so many things, so many things. Launchpad, you can get access to GitHub pages, and there are so many things. I'm not going to go over all of them, but yeah, man, tell me, you wanted to speak about anything? If you want to speak, I'm not able to hear you. You can just go ahead and speak. I'll wait for 3 seconds. If you don't speak by then, I'll assume it was by mistake. Okay, I think it was by mistake. Anyways, coming back. So you can get a Namecheap domain, 1 year access to your free .com.me domain. You can have something like aman.me. Azure, $100 Azure free credits, $200 in DigitalOcean. If you don't know what's DigitalOcean, DigitalOcean is a cloud platform where you can host your own applications. Name.com, you can create your own .com domain. Um, Free GitHub Pro. Yeah, that's very amazing. You can get a free .tech domain for 1 year, and that's something which I have used for a long time. I had the Madhav.tech. I've used that for a long time, which is really good. Uh, Although it's very expensive after 1 year. So, but anyways, no, not 1 year. I think you will have this till the time you are a student. So for 4 years, you will have this. You'll have all of these amazing things. MongoDB, AlgoExperts.io. AlgoExperts.io is um, you all know it's the famous company which is famous for the YouTube ads, Microsoft Azure, um, so many things. Mailgun, 20,000 free emails. So if you want to maintain a community, I created a community called Code to Express when I was in college, when I was in my third year. I created a community of more than 4,000 people. The community is no longer there. It's fine. It's fine. But at least I did it when I was just a college student, and I created a community of 4,000 people coming together, coding together, doing solving problems together, and doing so many things. I used to maintain a whole mailing list where I used to send emails using one of these type of free softwares only. So every single software that I used in my college days was free, and I got it through GitHub Education Pack. There used to be Canva as well. Canva is a app that from which you can create posters and stuff. Then there's Stripe. Yeah. So if you are a student, you can, and if you have an idea, this is so exciting. I can tell you, this thing was not there in my time. Otherwise, I would have definitely used it. Definitely. So if you are a student, you'll get access to this benefit. This is so amazing. I can't tell you how amazing this is. So what's going to happen is, let's say you have a business idea, any business idea. Let's say a clothing brand. You wanted to open a clothing brand. You have some time on your hands, free time on your hands. Just create a website. Just get a designer along with it. Open this business with 2 or 3 people. Just take along a designer with you. Ask that designer to design some amazing t-shirts. Let's say anime t-shirts. T-shirts with some cool Goku designs or cool Monkey D. Luffy designs, whatever. And then you can sell it online. You can run some ads on it. Oh, it's okay. Yeah. Anyways, so you can just sell it online, and then the first $1,000 revenue that you make, there will be no transaction fees, which is good. And $1,000 is not less. Okay. Anyways, I'll not go into everything. The list is endless. You see, there is no end to this list. Like you will probably require a whole day to actually just go through everything which GitHub is providing you. So that's how GitHub and Microsoft are doing their job to promote open source in among students. So it's really good. So I hope every one of you who doesn't have the student developer pack, as soon as this meeting ends, will click on this link and then go to the student developer access, get an access to student developer. Now coming back to the final section for today, we still have 15 minutes, so it's cool. Now I want to hear from you, everyone who is present here. Tell me what's a version control. I'll wait for 20 seconds. I really want to hear it from you because this is something so important because you cannot stand in software industry even for a single day if you don't know what's a version control. You cannot stand it. You cannot work in team. You cannot work on any project if you don't know what's a version control. Now tell me, guys. I'm waiting.
Basically, it keeps history your entire project. Like this is version one, this is version two. Now I added this version three. Kind of like a timeline for your entire project.
Exactly. Exactly. That's how it is. Simple. In simple words, that is how it is. Now, let's come back to the bookish definition once again, and then we'll come back to the actual definition. So, bookish definition says that a version control system is a category of software tools that helps the software engineering team manage changes to source code over time. It keeps track of every module and so on. I don't care about whatever they write in books. The only thing I care about is how can I benefit from whatever I'm teaching or whatever I'm learning, right? So the thing is, whenever you develop a software, it will be very unlikely that you are going to develop it on your own. You will require a team. Just like, let's say you're building a house. A single person cannot build a house. You need an architect, you need the labor, you need someone to provide you the logistics, and so on. It's a huge project, right? Then people are going to lay bricks over bricks. Multiple people are going to work together to lay one brick on top of each other, put cement in between, and stick them, and so on. That's how a building is made. Simple, right? Very, very simple. Similarly, software is also like that. A single person, if they have to make a software, it will become very difficult, right? So that's why there's a team. There will be team of, depends on the project. There can be 10 people, there can be 100 people, there can even be 1,000 people working together on a single code base. There can even be 10,000 people working together on a single code base. And how do you think they'll collaborate? Do you think they'll send the code on Gmail? No, that's not going to work out. It's not going to work. That's where version control comes into the picture. So version control keeps track of every single, not only version. So yes, you were right, Jay, when you answered, it keeps track of the timeline and the versions. Um, oh, yeah, that is a version only. Whenever we talk about every modification, every single, no matter how small change that is, that's a change in the version, probably, right? But to keep it more simple, we can say it keeps track of every modification that's done. It keeps track of who made that change. It keeps track of when was that change made, and so on. Simple. So if there was no version control, there would be multiple people working on the same thing, and it will mess things up. If you really want to learn in depth about version control, you can go to this wiki by Atlassian. It's a really good one. It has everything in detail. Cool. If you really want to learn more about version control, there's this crash course by Traversy Media, I think. It's a good one. Now, let me tell you quickly what is Git? Simple. Git is the most famous version control. There have been multiple version controls before Git, multiple, but none of them became as famous as Git. And now every software company out there, I don't see any exception. Every startup, every software company, they're using Git. Git is so, so, so helpful. So when I say VCS, VCS means version control system. So Git is the most widely used VCS today, and it's very, very good. It's just a version control. That's it that you need to know for now. We'll come to how it works in 2 minutes. But now, are Git and GitHub are the same thing? No, they're not. I think most of you, since you already know about Git, you might be aware. But there are a lot of people who think Git and GitHub are the same thing and so on. Never say that in front of anyone. Never. Git is the version control system. GitHub is a cloud service that provides version control system. That's it. It provides version control system on the cloud. What do I mean on the cloud? It's a website that you can use to track your modifications. At the end of the day, inside in the internals, it's also using Git. That's it. Well, it's just a cloud service that's enabling you to use Git on the cloud. That's it. Let's get on to the little working. So Git thinks of its data more as a series of snapshots. So what does this mean? Let's look at it. So let's say right now this is the state of an application. This website. I'm building this website. Now this is the current version of this website. Now what did I notice? I noticed that there's a typo. Love the pack. Instead of love the pack, it should be love this pack. Something like that. So I make the change. Love this pack. I convert the into this. That's a modification. Every modification that we make, it creates snapshot of that and keeps track of every such snapshots. That snapshot is called a commit. You need to remember this word commit. There are few terminologies that you need to remember. Committing means saving the state of your project. Basically, GitHub is taking a picture of how your files look like. That's it. And to be more efficient, if the files have not been changed, Git doesn't store the file in the snapshot once again. It looks like this. Let's say there are 3 files in my project. In the first change that I do, I convert file B to B1. No, sorry. Yeah, I convert A to A1 and C to C1. So the second check-in that I make, check-in means checking in the code, making a modification. That's it. So the second check-in that I make, it's only going to add A1 and C1 in the new snapshot. And for B, it's just going to have a pointer towards the original snapshot. That's it. That makes it more efficient. So snapshot is basically a record of all your files at the given point of time. That's it. Commit is act of creating that snapshot or basically saving the state of your code. As soon as you commit, your code is saved now. You can revert back to it anytime you want. You can know who created that commit. You can everything. You everything. So whenever you're not sure about the change you're making, commit it. It's okay. Commit the initial version that works and then make your changes. If it doesn't work, throw them away. Go back to the previous commit. That's it. I don't know if you're understanding it. If you have any doubts, just feel free to unmute yourself, cut me off, ask your question because I'm there for you. I'm spending 1 hour on Saturday for you guys. So you should learn things, right? So if you have any question, just cut me off in between and ask. Repository is just a location or a digital storage where your files are stored, where your project is stored. Head is the reference to the most recent commit. And branches is basically what a branch is all the commits live on some sort of branch. Imagine it as a tree, right? There's a trunk, there's a simple trunk. You can think of it as a master branch. That's where all your code is, which is deployed. When I say deployed, it means that is the code that users use. Now, if I have to create a new feature, it will be risky, it will be dangerous if I modify the existing code on the master branch. Master means your trunk of the tree. Imagine a tree, there's a big tree. Now, if I have to create a new feature out of that tree, I create a branch out of it. And then I put a fruit on it. That's a branch. That's it. Think of it like that. Basically, there's a there's the most deployable or most safe version of code, which is in master. I have to create a new feature. I copy this code at the same time. Here, I copy this. I write my changes and then I merge it. I test them, I merge it back. That's how things work in GitHub, in Git. It's so simple to understand. I have a working code here. Whenever I have a working code, I do not want to mess things up. So what I do is I create a copy of that code here. I add my features, I test them, and once they're ready to deploy, I merge it back to the master branch. So master branch or the main branch these days it's a good concept to keep your master named as main. But anyways, usually this is called a master branch. And these are the 5 most frequent commands that you are going to use. Git init to initiate a new repository, git remote add origin to connect your repository, local repository. By local, I mean the code that you have on your machine. It's going to connect that code to the repository that's present on GitHub. Then the connection is made, then you can upload and download files, basically in simple terms. Adding, creating a snapshot, committing, and then push. Pushing means you do your changes in your local laptop, you push them on the cloud, you push them on GitHub. That's it. Now, this is a homework for you. Make first open source contribution. Anything, anything, simple. You can use, just a second, let me find it out. There used to be first timers only. Or up for grabs. Yeah. So if you see, if you want to find out some easy things, let's say this one. They marked it as easy. Let's see how easy it is. Anyways, I'm not going to go too deep into all these things. Up for grabs, first issue, and so on. So basically, these are some tags which you can use to figure out the issue you're going to work on. It doesn't need to be a big change. You can do such change in the documentation itself. Simple changes. start contributing open source. These are the 6 steps that I have mentioned that you can use. This is a homework for you guys. And that's it. Good luck. Thank you. Now we still have 13 minutes, or I think, yeah, 13 minutes, if I'm not wrong. Ask me anything you want. And don't forget to connect with me. If you're watching this video, I'd be happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. You can find me Madhav Behel. Or if you want to connect on Instagram, I would love to connect with you guys as well. It's the Lean Programmer. If you have any questions, I know it was a quick one. I know it was a basic one. And that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing about open source. It's so easy. It's so easy. I don't have anything else to say to you. It's so easy. Everything that you wanted to, that you should know about open source, I already told you. As simple as that. Within 40 minutes. You can learn Git, GitHub, everything in 40 minutes. That's it. But if the real learning is going to happen when you start implementing, when you start making open source contributions. So um, yeah, I hope you got to learn something. Yeah.
Yeah, by motivating the participants, I would like to clarify your Q&A. So any queries will be well entertained. Please unmute yourselves and go ahead.
I had a question regarding you explaining the entire version of the concept. About the is the whole project and let's say the project is going for very long. A lot of different changes have happened. A lot of different versions exist. But isn't that going to eat up a lot of unnecessary amount of storage? Let's say you're 1 year into production. You have like over 100 commits and 100 major changes. Older versions which don't even have all the features and you have not a stable version, why do you even still keep the old snapshots, essentially speaking? Isn't that just wasted memory at that point?
Yeah. So commits essentially do not eat up that much memory. Branches can eat up a lot of memory. So it's always a good practice to clean up your branches. So whenever branches is basically nothing but a kind of a copy of your code, right? It doesn't copy a whole of your code, obviously, but it has a lot of unused code. So once you merge, let me actually go back to that slide. I'll come to your question very quickly. Just a second. Okay. Yeah, this is the screen. Let me share. Okay. I hope it's visible. So branches basically are going to have the separate versions of code and all those things, right? So let's say I am writing a script, um, Python script, and then want to add a new feature. I created a new branch, which is essentially a copy of your master branch, not actual copy. It's just a pointer to the original branch, but it's still a kind of a copy. And I make some changes to it. I add a new feature to it, and then I merge it. So as soon as I merge it, there are two kinds of people: person A, person B. A is a good man or a good woman, whatever. He or she is going to delete his or her branch. That's a very good practice because every time you do not delete your branch, there's a copy of this code as well as the copy of the same feature existing on a separate branch as well. So it messes things up. It's a waste of things. It's a waste of things. Exactly. So it's a very good practice to delete those branches. But commits essentially does not eat up that much memory. A commit is nothing basically whenever you make a commit. Now that let me tell you before coming to this, let me tell you one more thing. So in a single feature that you build, let's say you're building a feature and then you created a new branch out of it and then you made your code changes. And once you make your code changes, you might have multiple commits here. 1, 2, 3. But when you merge it to the master branch, you essentially do not need all these 3 commits. So you basically squash them. You squash them into a single commit with all the information and then you merge it. So that way you are again preventing all the useless information to going here. And essentially a commit is nothing but that that change already has to be there along with a commit message, along with the timestamp. These 3 things. And there are a couple more things, but anyways, these 3 things. Just a message, just a just a message, just a timestamp. That's it. And that thing is very, very valuable. Again, you can keep it limited to 5 years, 10 years, whatever, but there's no such limits in most of the projects. So it's not occupying any amount of memory. So it's just a single line with every commit, right? It's negligible amount of memory. So that was your answer. Let me show you how it looks like as well. Let's go back to VS Code only. So in the VS Code, we can see all the commits. There are two things that actually we can see. Let's go to the commits once. So if you see, there have been 111,000 commits here. But that does not mean these are all the commits. There will be multiple branches which will have multiple commits. So before merging that branch, people would have always squashed that commit into a single commit message. So a commit essentially maintains the history very well. So this is very, very required from the starting of the project. There's no such thing as commit history should be of 4 years, 5 years, and so on. So it's not occupying any sort of space. And the last thing that I wanted to share here was blame. So let's say I'm able to find out that it's called blame, but it's not used to blame people. It's just a bad word used here. Let me take a simple example, not a blaming example. Let's see. So let's say I'm new to this code base and I'm trying to add some new feature inside this function, create module description. I have to add this. Now I have some doubt in this function. What is this function doing? I try to ask one of my teammates, and then they say that, oh, how do I know? I'm not sure. So it will be very difficult, right? If I go to every single person and then ask them manually till the time I'm brute force, it is a brute force approach till the time I'm able to reach to the person who has written this. So what I can do is just click on blame. Now I'll know this line of code has been written by this person. This line of code has been written by this person at this time. So commits essentially do not eat up any of your memory, yeah, and they are very good to maintain, yes. But branches you should delete after merging your feature or a hotfix. Any other question?
So you follow see that we it's about practice to the when we merge master branch, does it automatically and procedure that very fast?
So usually whenever we create a feature, we create a pull request. So basically what we do is we do some changes on our laptop. We do not directly commit it to master branch. So this is the master branch. It's a good practice that they have used main. In a lot of projects, you will see master, or in a lot of projects, you'll see main. It's basically the default branch with the most safe and most deployable code. Now, when I write a new feature, I'll create a new branch. Let's say this one, add hide on start terminal setting and so on. So what will they do is they'll create the changes. They'll do all these changes. These are the changes that are done. After doing these changes, they'll create a pull request. Why is it called a pull request? It's basically you are requesting the owners of this repository to pull in your change into their code. Simple. You are requesting the owners of the repository. This is a repository VS Code. You're requesting owners of the project to pull in your changes. That's why it's called pull request. So this guy, Tyler Trier, he wants the maintainers of VS Code to pull in his changes. Simple. And then they'll approve it or whatever. They'll review it. They'll see the changes are correct, whether all the test cases are passing or not, and so on. And now this guy will have an option called merge. By default, it would be merge and delete repository, something like this. But sorry, not repository. That would be so bad. Anyways, merge and delete branch by default. But if you really think that still the branch is needed for something, you can go check in the option that only merge without deleting the branch. So yes, you are right. By default, it will delete the branch once you merge this feature. But you can override it.
Any more questions, participants? Yeah.
Like, as you were saying, like branches are like they take up more memory. So, do you suggest any branching strategies? Git flow, GitHub flow.
Sorry, I'm not able to hear you properly. You're saying what strategies?
Branching strategies like Git flow and GitHub flow. And could you
Branching strategies in general, like Branch has to be made for every single thing that you do. You will not work on
Uh,
master branch. So what
yeah,
exactly do
no, as in like, mm, for example, a large, let's say we have a large project and multiple people are doing like multiple branches for themselves for different things. But as you said, that will take up much more memory. So like, is there anything that we could
it
do
won't take
to?
that much memory, yeah, but it will be a stale thing which no one is using. Yes.
Yeah, Shreya, you can go ahead with your question.
Hi. So yeah, I just wanted to ask, are there any vulnerabilities to the open source?
Are there any vulnerabilities to the open source? That depends on repository to repository and how good it is maintained. So security vulnerabilities is a it's a very broad topic. Um, in general, open source, the term open source doesn't mean anything more than a repository which is open to everyone. In general, that does not mean if your code is open to everyone, that does not mean you are exposing the vulnerabilities. Well, yes, the code will be out there for everyone to see. They might figure out bugs in that code. They might figure out some security vulnerabilities, but that doesn't mean that open source itself is vulnerable. That doesn't make open source vulnerable. On the contrary, like people can actually find some bugs and they can fix it. Yes. Um, how many vulnerabilities does your code have depends on how much you are maintaining it, um, how much is your project dependent on other libraries. That also is a very big concern of vulnerabilities. Let's say if your project is dependent on 1,000 other code bases, 1,000 other repositories. Let's say I'm using React.js or let's say I'm using Materialize CSS in my project. That's a library. I'm depending on that library. So if there's some vulnerability in Materialize CSS, I'm going to have the same vulnerability in my project itself. So there are multiple processes, like we can do audits of our code base. When working in an organization, you'll have to do a lot of security audits, then compliance audits, and privacy. These three things. So every feature that you roll out, not every feature, but every product essentially has to go through some sort of audits to make sure that it's secure, fully, there's no lack of privacy and so on. So in general, you cannot associate the word vulnerability with open source. Yeah. Even closed source projects have vulnerabilities.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Madhav, for joining us that too on a Saturday. Thank you for taking out your precious time, actually. And also, I think the session has been recorded. And after the live stream, there are like many freshers coming up, and they'll get to learn a lot from this. And on the behalf of the open source community, I would really like to thank you for joining us. And I would like to especially thank on behalf of the PR. Thank you, PR, for contacting Madhav Behel. And this had been a great session. Thank you so much. And also, I would like to ask one question from my end at the end, like at this point of time, what I see when people use Git and GitHub, most of them are just confined to Git clone, find projects, and just, don't you think it is just kind of affecting their capability to make something from scratch? Like, what is your take on it?
I think you are asking more in terms of a lot of people are depending on the open source libraries more. Is that what you want to ask, and not building something from scratch?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my opinion on that is that's a good thing. Why do you want to reinvent the wheel? If I'm building Uber, I want money. I want business. I want my business to start as soon as possible. Why would I go and invest in launching my own satellites? Because Google has already done that. I can just pay Google on the basis of my usage. I can pay them some share of my money and then start my own Uber app. If Uber had to launch their satellites first, there would be no Uber today. If Ola had to do the same, there would be no Ola today. So the same thing applies to open source. But yes, on a student level, as you said, that yes, even for the projects, I know a lot of you, even I did that. For the assignments, you guys just clone the GitHub repositories and then show them as your assignment. I don't have, or no one has any problem with that. But it's a bad practice in general because first of all, you are not giving credit to the original author who wrote that code. Um, well, no one cares because only your teacher is going to see it. And but so till that point, it's fine. It's fine to use it because you're just not using it for some other purpose. But in case you find yourself cloning the repository, let's say let's say Google Maps is open source. If you find them yourself cloning that, using that whole thing, running that in your app, and you're making money from your app, now that is where legal complications can come into the picture, because that specific app, that specific repository will have some license which you'll have to follow. Most of them will have MIT license and other licenses. So you will have to make sure that for most of the open source projects, from student usage, from development purpose, experiment purpose, it's fine to use it for free for your personal website and so on. Yeah. But if you are commercially
That
using on
answers.
that, yeah, it's not good.
Thank you so much. That answers my query. And I hope people just don't get dependent to Git clone, but they also explore more to the entire powerful version control system behind. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are looking forward for further engagements with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone. Bye bye.
Goodbye. Thank you. Yeah. VIT-AP, we take great pride in our commitment to promoting the philosophy of open source and its transformative impact on the world of technology. Our podcast will feature engaging interviews, in depth sessions, and insightful discussions, all aimed at inspiring and informing our audience about the limitless possibilities that open source offers. So, whether you're a developer seeking new perspectives, a student eager to expand your knowledge, or just an open source enthusiast ready to be immersed in the tech world, TechCast is your go to source for all the things open source. Join us as we celebrate the collaborative spirit, global connectivity, and the unyielding pursuit of technological excellence. Together, let's unlock the true potential of open source and shape the future of technology. Now, ladies and gentlemen, today I stand before you to introduce a true powerhouse of talent and innovation. He is the founder of FOSS42 and the mastermind behind API Dash, a captivating open source cross platform API client with an impressive academic background from IIT Kanpur and over 9 years of professional experience. This individual has honed their expertise in full stack development and machine learning. Notably, they are a former Google Summer of Code scholar as well. Beyond his technical powers, his heart in nurturing the developer community is he takes joy in helping fellow developers, their skills, and enhance their productivity. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let us extend a warm welcome to exceptional Mr. Ankit Mehta. Over to you, sir. We welcome you.
Hello, folks. So before we begin, just a quick minute. Just to join this Discord group where we can take up chats later on when the session ends, in case we run out of time. So it's just a short URL. I'll paste it on the chat also. Let me see. Purva, is there any chat window?
Yes, sir. I think in this Teams meet, we do have a chat box here. Yeah, I'll just drop a message.
Yeah.
Did you find it, sir?
No, I haven't received it. No worries. So you can see the screen, right? The Bitly URL. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. It is visible.
The Discord channel?
Yes, sir. That too. The link is
Okay.
visible.
Yeah, so guys, just join the link whenever so that we can take up questions later. So I'll get started because we are already running late. So hey everyone, I'm Ankit. I'm the founder of First 42. Previously, I worked in JP Morgan, and I was also a data scientist and a PM in a US startup, Series A funded startup. I did my bachelor's and master's from IIT Kanpur, and currently I'm building API Dash. So what's API Dash? It's an open source API client, one of the top Flutter open source API client, which will help people basically test out APIs, explore APIs, and it supports multimedia APIs. And it is kind of it was built with the intention to support new age APIs. So I'm building API Dash, and you can see some of the screenshots. So we'll just move ahead. Yeah. And so in today's session, we'll be talking about open source and web development. So this is our topic. To begin with, we will just start with open source. So what is open source? Open source is something people can modify and share because its design is publicly accessible. So, so it is not just a piece of code that you find on the internet or a software. It is kind of a broader set of values. It is all about sharing and it is a way of life. So to begin to share my open source journey, let's go back to 2002. So in 2002, I got my first computer, and that's when I started open source development. I'm just kidding. I used to play a lot of games back then. I don't know whether you guys are familiar with any of these games. That's not when I started my open source or coding journey. It started in 2010. So in 2010, I joined IIT Kanpur, and that's where my journey started. So, th- so this was the so in college, I met a lot of folks, and they were talking about open source and how we can learn, tinker, explore. So this was the first app that I built. It was FracGen. It used to generate fractals, and it was built using the Python open source ecosystem. So everything you see over here was built using Python. It used WX Python, V Python, and all other open source libraries. The open source Python programming language. The entire thing was open source. So this was my first open source project. Then I also built some other open source projects, and but it was not in isolation. So open source is about having fun, sharing ideas, and teamwork. So I made a lot of friends. We used to jam together, we used to build stuff together, we used to share ideas. So you have to remember, open source is not something to be done in a silo. Share ideas with people, interact with people, ask them whether they want to contribute. So it is all about that culture of openness, sharing, and basically taking feedback from the community, because at the end of the day you want your product to be used by the community. The next thing is, it's not just about coding or building something. It is also about teaching and enabling others. So when you learn something in open source ecosystem, you try to share it with the community. You write Medium blogs, you make YouTube videos, you can take live workshops. So that is something that I started back then. I used to take workshops and I used to teach people Python. So, and the most important thing you have to remember, open source is also about embracing diversity and inclusion. Now, when I say diversity, it is not just based on like region or gender. It is also like in colleges, uh, we have branches. So people like kind of differentiate that, okay, we'll only work with CSE branch. It's not like that. Open source is all about sharing ideas. It is all about diversity of opinions, and it goes beyond just gender and region. So remember, when you are building open source project, be open to take feedback from anyone. Anyone can be your user. Anyone can give you some guidance to make your product better. So, and it can only happen when you foster this basically this thinking that you should be open and you should embrace diverse cultures, opinions, and everything. So back then, so my next journey was basically I organized the high performance computing contest, and so till now I was doing Python. I was involved with the Python ecosystem, but it is when I was doing this high performance computing, I realized that Python is not enough. It is not fast. It is really slow. The parallel computing was not up to the par, and the overall performance was not good. So then it made me realize that okay, open source is also about embracing the shortcomings. It is not like you can compare an open source product directly with a commercial product. A lot of money is spent in building a commercial product. Whereas open source projects are generally born out of a need of a developer and he wants to share that with the community. It takes time for an open source project to actually provide kind of features which can directly compete with a commercial product. So you have to also embrace that fact. You cannot go ahead and to a open source project and expect that it has all the features and all the things that you need. And that's where something which comes up is where you can contribute back. So for example, so at that time the parallel performance, parallel computing and all these features were not there in Python, but with time people realized the importance of that and they built a lot of powerful libraries like Numba, Dart, Rapids, and today they perform at par with C codes. So you have to remember that it takes time, but often the community and the network, it gives the feedback and the project grows ahead and it becomes too big that suddenly these are some of the products that are actually used in the industry right now to do high performance computing, do parallel computing. So you have to remember, you have to give time, you have to contribute back, and it takes time for an open source project to actually gain that kind of maturity. And like I said, open source is all about contributing back. So I also participated in GSOC, and so there are a lot of nowadays there are a lot of programs like Season of Docs, MLS Fellowship, Season of KD, Hacktoberfest. So these are some of the projects, some of the programs that help basically people get that first contribution in their list, and they guide you. You get mentors, they guide you with the project, and it is one of the best opportunities to actually go ahead and start your open source contribution and to learn how you can contribute back to the open source. And there are also other programs. So it gets nowadays you have Hashnode and basically Medium. So you get a lot of announcements everywhere. You participate in hackathons. Everything can help you learn. So just remember that. So next, when I graduated from college, I moved to US and I worked in data science field. And that is when I saw that how proprietary softwares companies were having a tough time competing with basically open source products. You had open source products like TensorFlow, then S2O AI. So these were like straight on demolishing traditional companies who were keeping their source codes protected, and they were becoming one of the industry standards. So today, PyTorch, TensorFlow, all these machine learning toolkits are actually open source. So with time, people have now realized that open source, it is very hard to catch up with open source. So either you build an open source product, or you will have a very tough time getting users to try out your product and actually uh, getting your product actually in production. So that's why this is one of the lessons that I learned, that in each and every sector, you have some of the best open source tools that are currently there in the market. And basically, you can, and always new tools are coming ahead to actually help people do stuff in the production, build, compute, everything. So open source is now becoming a new business model. So where now companies, they open source the product and services, support, solutions. These are the forms of revenue generation nowadays. So this is one of the typical models that companies are nowadays embracing. So, and then when I joined JP Morgan, I also saw that open source is everywhere. So their entire platform is built using Python. So open source is everywhere. So you have to remember that the sooner you get exposure to open source, it is better, because open source is everywhere in the industry. And the next thing, it, like I said, it is not just source codes. Open source is also about specifications, standards, then implementation. So in open source, it's not like you straight ahead jump to the project and you start building. It is all about first you brainstorm, you discuss, you lay out the architecture. So a lot of things goes into actually first building that specification, that what are you trying to build, how people can contribute, and what are the features that it will offer. So it is also about more about first specification, then straight away jumping to implement something. And most important thing, it is all about having patience. So you have to be patient. You cannot get reap rewards in just a single month or 3 months. You have to be patient, and only through your passion you can actually build something and actually get it accepted by the community, and the project will grow. So you, a lot of open source projects take around 3 to 4 years to actually reach that kind of maturity, that people start noticing it and they start using it. So you have to be very patient when you are building an open source project. So, and one of the most important things, you have to spread awareness. That is one of the most important things. You have to tell people that how they can benefit from your open source project, and for that you have different forums, different conferences where you can go, and you can basically let people know that how what the project you are building can help them ease their lives and actually be very useful for them. So you don't have any marketing budget and all. It's all word to mouth, word of mouth. So you have to actually go ahead and spread awareness yourself on ground. Go to conferences, go to meetups, meet more developers, take their feedback. So it is, so that kind of, you have to spread awareness and adoption, and you will also gather a lot of feedback in that process. So now let's move ahead. So let's talk about just a single open source ecosystem and how the entire ecosystem works. So let us take an open source ecosystem which is closer to me, which is Flutter. So what is Flutter? Flutter is a Google's cross-platform UI toolkit. You can write a code and deploy it anywhere, be it mobile, desktop, web. So any platform you can target and you can ship apps. Now it was launched back in 2017, and it has been approximately 6 years now. Some of the, just a second. So some of the popular apps are built using Flutter. For example, Dream 11. This is built using Flutter. You have Google Pay. It is also built using Flutter. So some time back, I made an app called as EdPunk. I made it using Flutter. It provides interactive learning. You can check that out also. Then there are smart apps that are built using Flutter. So a lot of apps are nowadays built using Flutter because you can write a single code and it can ship in Android, iOS, Mac OS. I'm writing the entire code in Dart and Flutter using the Flutter framework, and I ship it across multiple platforms like Linux, Mac OS, Windows. And we also have a web version that we are currently working. So that is one of the benefits. You write once and you ship everywhere. Now let us take an example of this ecosystem. So for example, I want to build an app called a street artist. So what will I do? I will start with the requirement gathering, where I will draw some mock-ups, and then I will try to find corresponding material design components, which is well documented in Flutter. So, for example, app bar, backdrop, buttons, bottom navigation bar. So I will go ahead, and these are some of the standard components that are already available. So I'll go ahead and check them out. Like I said, open source is more about specification and standards. So these components have been laid out in the material design specification. For example, an app bar, grid view, card, image, the behavior of these components have been written in a specification. And now so now the Google team, what they do, they implement it for various platforms. For example, the same app bar can be implemented for Android. It can target a web. It can target basically Flutter. So these are called implementations. So that is one thing. So a lot of work by Google is done by laying out the material design specification, and then the team comes up and builds implementations corresponding to the platform. So what I will, since I'm using Flutter, I'll go to the Flutter docs and I can check out what are the implementations available for Flutter developers. So I can use the app bar, I can use the card, I can use the image. So I'll go ahead and build a prototype. Quickly, I'll go ahead and build a prototype. It will use an app bar. It will have a grid view, and you will have the cards with the images inside them, right? I have all the basic components to get me started. Now you can see the animation. Yeah. So a user can scroll and see all the street arts that is nearby. So now the issue in this design was that you can see that all the images have been stretched, and at times the ratio is for street art is not square. So now if I try to fit it in the actual ratio of the images, you can see there's a lot of empty spaces, and this UI is simply not working. You have a lot of empty spaces, and you can also not have that feel of the app that it is a good quality app. So what I actually want is something like this. So you have already seen Pinterest. So something kind of a Pinterest where the cards they will stack one below other, and it will be a really nice UI where the aspect ratio is also maintained. So you can see how the aspect ratio is maintained for these cards. Okay. So how will I build it? Material design specification does not specify how you can actually go ahead and build it, because this comes under implementation part. So it's a combination of grades and combination of calculations. So the first instinct is to go and build, write your own code. But you have to remember, open source is about not reinventing the wheel. So instead of reinventing the wheel, writing it yourself, you have to actually go ahead and you can actually go ahead and see what people have already built. So these three components are called packages. So there are pre-built packages that people are shipping that can have those functionalities which you require in your app. So in Dart and Flutter ecosystem, there are more than 40,000 packages. And so this is the package manager, which is PubDev. So it is a text-based search where you can write text and you can get the corresponding list of packages that are matching to that text. But again, this comes up with an issue that since you are developing UI, you cannot see what you are building, right? These packages, you have to click on each package, see what is happening, what are the features provided by a package. So this kind of is an issue. So that's where a visual discovery platform comes in. So you can check out fluttergems.dev. So it is for Flutter developers. So you can check out fluttergems.dev. So what it does, it beautifully arranges and categorizes all the packages based on their features. So you have, for example, the Pinterest-like theme that I wanted. It is there in the grid section. If you go to the grid category, you will see there are packages like staggered grid view, waterfall flow, which can help me directly plug these packages in to my app and get that feature implemented. Now for images, you have some images like before and after. You might want some images to load with fade in and load. So network images, asset images. So a lot of features that you want. You can just simply go to the image category and you can see the packages. For example, some new design called as new neomorphic design. You can go ahead and to this category and see some of the packages which can help you directly plug neomorphic design in your app that you are building. Same goes for floating action button, different variant. You are using a lot of apps. You can see each app has a different kind of floating action button. You can simply visit the floating action button category and plug in the package which meets your requirement. Now, remember, I said open source is about embracing diversity and inclusion. This is a major lesson that I want to tell you because this entire Flutter Gems, which helps people find packages and basically plug it in their app, was built by someone whom I mentored way back in college. So at that time, we used to have this programming club, and I used to outreach to all the basically all the segments of the campus and tell them to join the programming club, learn programming. And one of the person that I mentored actually went ahead and built this app. So you remember how important it is in open source community. And this project was highly appreciated by the head of product of Flutter. So that is one of the major lessons that I wanted to let you guys know that be open, be teach others, learn from others, get feedback. You don't know who will come up with the next big idea and build something which can totally change the open source ecosystem. And you have to also remember that this entire thing was built by a single person. So each and every one of you can actually go ahead and make a difference. Also, you have to remember that open source is about writing good documentation. So because treat your documentation like a Tinder profile. If you don't have a good documentation which can give you a snapshot of features in a single instant, then it becomes very challenging for developers to adopt your project. So make sure you write good documentation. And remember that your piece of code can actually power something bigger. So be responsible, do testing, add tests. So you have to also remember that testing is an important aspect of working on open source project because it gives confidence to people to actually go ahead and use our project because you have tested it well. So more than 90% test coverage is very preferred by people. Even more than 70% is also considered good. So make sure you write tests so that people can have that faith that yeah, the code that I'm going to use, the project that I'm going to use is well tested. For testing, you can use a lot of tools and also remember you have to make a release frequency, figure out release frequency, write change logs. and you have to become a BDFL, which you have to be open to receive feedback from community and let the community guide your project. So this is about my open source journey and what I learned from open source. Now let's quickly move on to version control. Say, I guess you already had an initial session on Git and GitHub. So let's quickly go through it. Version control is not something new. So in old days in designs, we used to have version control. Version one, for example, this is a very good example where a lit evolved over the period of time. And even you might have you can check out your assignment folder. It will have a lot of versions of the assignment. There will be a draft v1, draft v1 copy. So this is also a kind of version control. Now, version control systems have evolved over time. It started with first generation VCS, then it moved into central VCS, then it moved on to the distributed version control systems. So today, the most prominent version control system that we use is distributed version control system, and that is basically JIT that you have come across. JIT is distributed version control system. The, uh, and the entire open source ecosystem. And you might have heard about GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket. What are these? These are cloud platforms for hosting and collaborating on your Git repository, so that other peoples can also make copies, contribute back, make forks. So this is a cloud platform, and underlying it is JIT. JIT is the version control system that we use. And there are applications like GitHub Desktop, which can help you actually GUI friendly tools that can help you actually do this entire version control for your projects. So this is GitHub Desktop. So the reason why I'm talking about GitHub Desktop is because not everyone is very comfortable with using what you can say command line. So GitHub Desktop kind of helps people use. Just a second. Yeah. So GitHub Desktop helps people use a GUI interface to actually go ahead and do all the JIT actions on their project. So you can, for example, you can link your GitHub Desktop with your GitHub account, and then you can go ahead and view repositories. You can clone the repositories on your GitHub Desktop, and you can actually go ahead and check out all the history of the project, the branches that project has. You can update, you can fetch the latest version of the project, sync it, and then you can see the entire version, the history, the JIT history. You can also use using command line you can do JIT in it, but using GitHub Desktop you can directly go ahead and create a new repository through just a few clicks. You can see all the ways in which you can interact with the GitHub Desktop. So a lot of people are very comfortable using GitHub Desktop. So also if you are new to open source, you should go ahead and use GitHub Desktop to actually help you out and basically make you more productive. So for example, you can directly open code editors. You can actually go ahead and add, commit, do everything using GitHub Desktop. So I'm just quickly going through over it to show you all the features that you can use. You can also directly publish your GitHub project. You can see the commits on the GitHub. So let's quickly go through it. Now, another way in which you can create new open source projects is directly using GitHub. You can go ahead and create a new project. Then you can actually clone that project on your local desktop and then start working on it. So this is also one of the ways in which you can create a new project. And in GitHub Desktop, you have this feature to always open your code in the basically the code editor of your choice. So you can directly use GitHub Desktop to switch branches and open the code directly in the code editor. You can also, if you made any error, you can discard changes. You can actually go ahead and undo commits. The last commit that you made, you can undo it. So a lot of features are there, and that you can. So you can do git revert using GitHub Desktop by doing that undo commit. Yeah. So now coming to the main thing. So how can you go ahead and contribute to an open source project? So a typical contribution workflow is to contribute to an open source project is you go ahead and raise first you use the project, then you can find out some issue that okay, it would have been much better if the project was implemented in such a fashion, or this feature is missing, so or there is a bug. So you can go ahead and raise an issue on GitHub project page and discuss it with the maintainer. Now, upon discussing, the maintainer will tell you that, yeah, this is something that you can work on. So then go ahead and fork the repository to your personal GitHub account. Now, in your personal GitHub account, you go ahead and clone the forked repository onto your computer. Now you can create a new branch to work on the feature or bug fix. So there is a main branch. You just create a new branch from the main branch and name it like, okay, I want to add this feature. So add feature something something, that will be your new branch. Then you make your changes, you test the code on that branch. And once it is done, you push all the commits to your fork that you created on your GitHub account. Now from there, you have to go ahead and open a pull. When you open a pull request, it will ask you which branch you do you want to submit for the PR. So you can go ahead and select the feature branch and you can submit it. Now you wait for, generally you wait for a review when and then the reviewer will go ahead and pull and merge the pull request to the original repository once it is approved. Now, the reviewer might also suggest you changes. So you can still make changes in your own branch and you can push them to your repo. It will automatically get reflected in the pull request. So you have to remember that it's not like the pull request is full and final. You can make changes to the branch and it will automatically get reflected in the pull request. And once all the tests have passed and the reviewer is and the maintainer is like, yeah, this is now complete, he will go ahead and merge it. So this is how you actually go ahead and open and contribute to an open source project. So this is a typical contribution workflow that I taught. Uh, so this is just an example where I will go to issue. I can raise a issue and I can receive a reply from the admin or the maintainer. Then I'll go ahead and create a fork. Then I can create a local clone of that fork and then create a new branch. Then I can open that branch in VS Code and I can make edits, commit them, and publish that branch. Then I can go ahead and create a pull request. So once I create a pull request, I can specify what are the features that I'm adding and I can just submit it. Yeah, it is created. Now the reviewer can come back and he will add a basically comment and he can merge the he can view the changes that has been made by me and go ahead and merge it. So that's how you actually open. This is the entire flow. How you open it, open a issue. Then from there you work on. You create a fork. You create a feature branch. You work on the feature branch. You go ahead and raise a pull request, get it reviewed, add any modifications, and finally after the review it gets merged. So this will be a typical contribution workflow. So, any questions until this point? So, till here, I was talking about open source and how you can go ahead and contribute to an open source project. So, any doubts you have, the floor is now open. Before we move on to the next segment, which is talking about full stack developer journey in open source and how you can become one. Any questions, anyone?
I think, sir, it's clear so far.
Okay. So let's move ahead. So let's move on to the main segment that I wanted to cover. So what is full stack development and how you can become one, and how what are the open source tools that you need to learn, so which can help you become one. So what is a full stack developer? Can someone tell me? Anyone out there? Yeah, just unmute and interact. No worries. You might be wrong. You might be correct. Totally agreed. So full stack developer knows backend, front end, database, middleware, DevOps. Full stack developer is actually a role which requires a knowledge of all aspects to actually start ideation, which starts from the ideation, conceptualization of a project to actually building it from scratch, and then going ahead, testing it, and further going ahead and deploying it so that other peoples can use it. So it covers the entire aspect of a product from start to end. It starts from ideation to actually going ahead and deploying it. So basically, it has various aspects. It has front end development, back end development. You need to deal with databases, DevOps, and mobile app development. So front end development. How you start with front end development part. So you start with the basics. You start with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Then you move on to open source, basically libraries which are very powerful and industry standards like React. You learn React, and that's how you build components. You learn all about different components that you can compose together to build the entire front end, which for example we saw like cards or drop downs, all the front end components, how the users will interact with the product. So the front end part covers everything which requires you to actually build the uh, the uh, the user facing part of the app. Now now if once the front end is done, you can also start development of backend in parallel. Like you can compose small chunks of your. You can divide your project into small chunks where you can build the front end and backend, and you can test them out together. Some people do it this way. Some people, what they do, they start with the backend development first. So what they do is they build so they develop the entire architecture of the product that they are going to build. So how the backend architecture will look? Will it be serverless? Will it be filled with APIs? Will it be microservices? Will it be just a monolith? So they start with the backend architecture, then how it will interact with the front end, and how basically where what kind of require languages or tools in the backend are required. So a lot of people, they start with the backend first. They develop a headless product. It is called headless because there is no front end. So they start with developing a headless product, and then they start building a prototype of the front end and combine it together. And once this thing works, they start polishing the front end by using, for example, in CSS, you have Tailwind CSS. It's a really beautiful library. So then people start putting in Tailwind CSS and other basically powerful tools that can help you make the product shine. But backend, so this is backend and front end, but then there is also a database layer, which is persistence. So backend does the computation, front end does the view, but there is somewhere you need to store things, and that is where databases come into the picture. Now, database are also multiple types. For example, you have a very broad category is SQL and NoSQL. Now, based on your requirement, whether or not your product requires structured data or unstructured data, you decide whether it will be SQL based or NoSQL based. SQL is traditionally used for structured data. So, for example, PostgreSQL is most popular open source database which people use in production. So that is SQL based. Now in NoSQL base, you have a lot of if you are dealing with a lot of unstructured data like social media data, your for example, your app is social media app or a lot of user generated content, then people prefer NoSQL data stores because there is a lack of that structure. So that's why in NoSQL you have things like MongoDB. It is really powerful. Also, a lot of backend as a service products are there, like Firebase. So Firebase also offers you Firestore that you can directly use to put your NoSQL documents. So this is the part which is happening in the server side. But there are also new breed of databases, for example, like IndexDB, and these things that stores data on the client side. So you have to also see whether or not there are some data that you want to store in the client side. Then you will also use databases like IndexDB, which is there in Chrome and other browsers. So based on your architecture, you have to also design your database. What data will be stored in your server, what data will be stored on the client side, and also uh, in the server side, there is another thing, whether or not you require very fast access to data. For example, you have in memory databases like Redis. So if you require very fast ultra fast data access, then you will try to go ahead with using Redis. Again, this is an open source project. So everything that I'm talking about is open source, and there's a lot of things to learn when you become a full stack developer. So I covered front end, back end, database. Now, earlier there was mobile app development. So it was either Android, Swift, Kotlin. But now this is evolving. A lot of open source cross platform UI toolkits are coming in. UI frameworks are coming in like Flutter, React Native, that can help, that bridges the gap between the web front end and the mobile front end. So you, with a single code base, you can actually ship the web version and also the mobile version. So a lot of thing has been going on in that segment. So nowadays, mobile app development and front end development, they are not like separate entities, because from a single app, single code base, you can ship both for mobile, for desktop, and for web. So that is one thing. And the most important thing is DevOps. Now, just before DevOps comes in testing. So as an open source, as a full stack developer, you should also have some idea of testing. Testing are of various kinds, like unit testing, where you test the functions that you have developed for your basically application. Then there is widget testing, where you go ahead and test the UI components that you have built. So widget testing is all about using testing toolkits like Selenium, and you go ahead and like when you click on the drop down, whether it is appearing or not. So you kind of test the entire UI components. Now it can be together or the components can be separate. And then there is finally an integration testing, where you test the entire workflow, where you simulate a user how he will interact with the front end, and the entire data is passed to the back end, and the entire your app is tested. This is called as integration testing, because here you test both your front end database, back end, how the entire interaction is looking, and whether or not your product is performing as expected. Now, once you have sufficient confidence after your testing, you move to the DevOps part. DevOps part is basically so I'll cover that. Yeah, it is about CI/CD and how you can go ahead and deploy it in, like for example, you can deploy it in AWS, you can deploy it in GCP, or if you are building a Jamstack site, you can deploy it in Vercel, you can deploy it in Firebase hosting, GitHub hosting. You can deploy a lot of options are there. So you have to also choose the right deployment option for your project. It can be AWS, GCP. If you are building Jamstack, it can be Firebase hosting or GitHub hosting. But CI/CD is something that is nowadays you don't go ahead and build it manually on your computer. CI/CD tools like GitHub Actions, they help you automate the entire build process in the cloud. So if you make any change, it will go ahead and run the entire build action and automatically deploy it on whatever server that you have chosen. So this is so for as a full database, it is also about DevOps, because ultimately you are developing a product end to end, from start to deployment and production, where people can go ahead and use it. So there are various backend architectures. Your app can be web application, can be serverless. You can build different for different functionality or features. You can have separate microservices, or it can be just a single monolith that you deploy. So there are a lot of architecture decisions that you need to make. And what is right now very popular is microservices architecture, where you divide the various features into various standalone entities, which run as microservices, and the entire interaction happens via APIs. So that is right now one of the most popular architecture that people use. Now, there are some concepts that are very important. First and foremost is authentication. You should know about JWT, you should know about tokens, how you can go ahead and do social sign in, social sign up. Then state management. State management is basically when the user navigates from one page to another, what are the data that is getting passed? What is the data that is this is persisting? For example, if a user switches from dark mode to light mode, how it gets reflected? That is because state management. Because you have some global states that you maintain, and then you go ahead and update it based on user actions, or it can be based on the backend API calls. So you modify that state, and that changes automatically get reflected in the front end. So state management is also a major concept that you need to know. Then navigation, basically how you navigate from one page to another. It should not be broken. You have to figure out the entire navigation. Then how you structure the project. Uh, for example, I talked about backend architectures. Now the front end also you need to structure it. What kind of structure are you taking? Is it MVC structure, or are you breaking down your project into feature structure? So there are a lot of structures that are available, and based on your requirement, you can actually go ahead and figure out that okay, this is the right structure for my project. So these are some of the concepts that you need to keep in mind. And again, there are developer tools that can help you with debugging and testing. So developer tools like the code editors, VS Code is one popular code editor. GitHub help you basically manage your source code and have version control on that. Then you need to learn about npm, PyP, the package managers. You need to learn how you can locally run and debug it, your apps. Then you have GPT, Chat GPT. That is also turning out to be a major force, because if you get stuck, you can ask Chat GPT, and it can give you more or less an answer or a direction in which you can find the correct answer. So you should learn how you can use Chat GPT. Also, there are Chrome dev tools, Flutter dev tools, which can help you analyze the performance of your app. Nobody wants to use a crappy app, be it web application, mobile application. If it takes a lot of time to load, if the resources are not optimized, you like sleek apps which are high performant. So make sure you always run your Chrome DevTools, or if you're building mobile apps or Flutter apps, you can run Flutter develop tools to actually see how your app is performing and how you can optimize your app to maximize the performance. So yeah, that's it from my side. If you have any questions, the floor is now open. Also, yeah, if you want to learn more about Python, I have this course available, which is free to all, and you can go ahead and learn Python. And yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, you can also join the Discord server, and there you can post your questions. I usually answer it promptly. Like within 10-12 hours, you will definitely receive an answer. So if you have any questions regarding anything, front end, back end, full stack, open source, career related, anything, you can feel free to post it on the Discord server. So right now, in case you have any questions, the floor is now open. Yeah, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. Participants, we are now open for Q&A. You can either raise your hands and or just directly unmute and ask questions.
Yeah, so actually, so I talked about DevOps. So actually, that has merged with security nowadays. They call it DevSecOps. So yeah, you can find a lot of things in that direction. So right now, from security perspective, uh, JWT token. I have worked with JWT tokens, and basically, yeah, that's the max I've worked with right now. But there are a lot of other tools which are like which protect the server side. So you'll have to look into it. Basically, I haven't worked with it in my experience. So yeah, basically from attacks or from basically uh, some people try to, you have to also make sure that your apps cannot be hijacked. So any API request that you are sending should be well protected. So there are also tools to actually what is that oh yeah, there is one Charles proxy. It's a famous tool that helps you actually detect those kinds of things, that whether or not your messages will get intercepted, and there are chances for any security labs. So yeah, there are a lot of tools and a lot of things that are happening in security segment. You can actually we can take this in our Discord group also. You can, if you have any other specific question, you can ask it there. We can definitely take it there, because a lot of things have been happening in that segment.
Thank you, sir. I also had a question like for a beginner to start with full stack. It at the beginning it seems a little overwhelming. So what should be a roadmap or the approach, whether they should start with some small projects or just try to master back end first and then go to front end and then learn to integrate? How should it
Yeah.
work?
So the best way to learn it is by doing it yourself. That's the best way to learn it. You can do tons of courses, you can do tons of read tons of material, but it will not stick in your mind that how things can be done. So the best way is actually uh, To start with, first start with clones. A lot of people have built a lot of clones for for anything like Instagram or any other website or any other web platform. Start with clones, try to understand how people build clones, then come up with an original idea, or you can actually work on an idea from scratch. uh, think of a product that can help you or people around you. So it is so a good thing about college is there are a lot of problems which are localized in nature, that you know of, that people are already facing around you. You can think of an idea which can help them, and then you can start making some wireframes and brainstorming and taking feedback from people, that okay, whether or not they will find this kind of thing useful. Once you have that mock-up of wireframe ready, you should take a straight deep dive into development. So first of all, divide it in components. So what you can do, you can take up a feature, develop the backend for that feature first, then develop the front end, connect them together, run it locally, see if it works, and then develop more features until you build the project. Then move on to the testing part, test your project. It can be user testing, it can be automated testing. Then you can move on to CI/CD part, where you can learn about GitHub Actions and how you can actually just make changes to your code, and it automatically builds the entire project and deploys it. So in deployment also you can so the thing is that since you are in college, you will need credit card for AWS or GCP. The best thing you can do right now is you can start with something like Firebase. Firebase is requires no credit card to use, so you can start with Firebase. You develop Firebase functions, or you can use the Firebase Firestore, which is NoSQL database, and you can yeah, deploy it also in Firebase hosting. So that is free. Also, I think so Vercel is also free, and there are also some other providers which provide free hosting, so without any credit card requirements. You can look into that. And yeah, once you deploy it, make sure you show it to your friends, you take their feedback. Remember, feedback always helps you. So take feedback from people and work on it. Don't leave it after a week or a few days. Work on it until it actually becomes a big project. And you can also then showcase it, since you have done it from scratch. You know all the nuances you have faced and how you overcame it. Put it in your resume, and it will definitely also help you in interviews. When people will ask you about the project, you can actually tell them in detail about how you developed it from scratch and how you went ahead and deployed it, and you actually built a project that is actually used by people around you, because you solve an actual real life problem around you.
Thank you so much, sir. That answers my question. Any other participants having questions? We'll just take one or two questions quickly.
Yes. So, sir, I would like to know how do you recommend us to getting started with APIs or any basic APIs that beginners can start with?
If you want to start with API, I can say the best project to start with is Fast API. So if so, let me ask you again. Do you want to build APIs or do you want to use APIs? So if you can just clarify that part.
Build APIs, sir.
Build APIs, yeah. If you want to build APIs, then the best project right now, which is which can get you started within a day, is Fast API. It has all the nuances also, but it is one of the most friendly project for someone who wants to build an API. So start with Fast API. That is my high recommendation. Also, they have moved to Pydantic version 2. So nowadays, Fast API has become really fast. So it will not. So you can build high performance API using Fast API nowadays.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we have entertained the questions for the day, and I will really like to thank you, sir, for joining us and taking out the precious time from your busy schedule. This session was really very informative, and I would like to pass on the stage to our community lead for the open source community. So, yeah. Thank you once again, sir.